This part's always the worst part for me.
Oh, I know. Just go for it. I won't even look at you.
Right, okay. So welcome to another episode of the All About Ability podcast. I can hear Paul laughing in the background already. We're not even a minute in it yet. It's usually a good sign, you know. But today is quite a really interesting guest, in my opinion. She seems to undersell herself, but I disagree. Frankie Elyse. Now, the thing about Frankie is she's a master of many trades, it would seem. But also, before we get into the fact that she's a DJ and does all sorts of mad shit, I feel like it would be I feel like we should probably start on how we met, because it's kind of a funny story, and people, and it's like, usually when I get a podcast guest, I'll kind of go on the internet and like find them and hunt for them and sort of be like, hey, you want to come on and all that. But just a bit more random, wasn't it?
It was very random. God, it was a while ago now. It was a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it probably was like 6 months ago or something.
Yeah, it was. At
this point.
I mean, well, you can do the honours. You can tell the story.
I'm not the best storyteller. I don't really know where to start with this, but you know, being in a power chair, sometimes you don't charge it up properly. And I had a day that I was kind of I'd wheeled myself to the gym, which is quite a far away from my house and all that, and hadn't looked at the charge on the chair. And as I was wheeling back to get the train, and I was still quite a bit away for like being anywhere near any transport, like a bus or a train or something. And it just started to go slower. And I'm looking around and I'm going, it's only me that's in this area. Like,
no, it was like the kind of area between Calcadens and the actual, you know, the street, like the kind of Buchanan, it's Hockey Hall Street. Yeah. So it's quite a quiet. That's where I came across you.
It was a really quiet area, and then there's a point where I know that I'm in trouble when it just starts to go really slow. And I go, because I'm going up a hill and I'm going, this is going really slow, and my phone's almost at a battery and I'm not anywhere near anything. So I was starting to go, I'm in a bad situation here. This is not a good spot to be in. And you happen to be walking past me at this exact point. I remember thinking to myself, like, she's just going to think I'm trying to chat up, man. This is terrible. This is a terrible situation. But I had to be like, excuse me, like, can you help me? Because I'm kind of stuck, and like I don't know what was going through your head at this point, because you're like, what is going on here?
To be honest, like, not much. It was just kind of like, fair play. You know what I mean? I need to help you out. Like, if I'm honest, it's not the first time it's happened.
You told me this. You told me that. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. How does that happen to somebody twice? What are you talking about?
I don't know. Like, the first time I was near, oh gosh, where was it? Like, St Enoch Centre, and I was just walking across the road, and there was this guy in a wheelchair, and he just could not get across the road quick, and he could not get up the kind of the pavement, I suppose. Yeah. And I'd said to him, like, you all right? Like, do you need a wee bit of help? And he was like, if you don't mind, mate. Like, and bless him. So I was like, yeah, of course. So I was kind of like wheeling him, because he didn't have an electric wheelchair. It was just, you know, he was literally using that one leg. And it was just, you know, he was going so fast, but he just could not get up that pavement. And he did say his leg was a bit sore. And I was like, well, look, that's fine. I'll totally push you where you never need to go. Like, that's grand. And then he pushed me to all his pals. I was like, for God's sake. Like, we were going a bit. He said, wait, stop. I need to speak to my pals. And all his pals were like at a street corner. And I was like, I've got somewhere to go. Like, obviously I wanted to help him, but I was like, you're just having a chin wag now. Like, you know what I mean? He was there for about 5 minutes, and I was just standing there waiting. I was like, right, pal, we're going to have to go. So then I took him to Glasgow Central, but yeah. And then a few years later, I encountered you, but yeah, you were a bit more considerate of my time, I suppose.
Sounds like you should have been getting paid for this stuff, man.
I know. Full-time job, man.
I couldn't believe when you told me it happened to you like, before.
I know.
It's like, what a weird thing happened twice to somebody.
I know, but you know, it must be difficult, you know what I mean? Like, especially when you run out of battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a harder one to push. Like, so basically, you pushed me all the way from like Suckhill Street to like a taxi rank at the bottom. And it was a heavy chair as well. Like.
It is quite heavy, but it's getting muscles going.
So I was like, who is this woman? She's amazing. Wonder Woman was saving the day. And then during that wheel, we started talking about what we were doing and what you were up to that night and blah, blah, blah. and I just mentioned how I had a podcast, and then you followed me on Instagram, and when I seen your Instagram, I was like, who is this person? Who have I just discovered here? This mad DJ that interviews people and basically just does everything that I'd want to do in my life. So it was very sort of strange circumstance, but I do believe things happen for a reason. And
I do as well.
You definitely helped me that day, so thank you.
Oh, well, you're very welcome.
And who'd have thought it would result in this?
I know.
Yeah, I mean, even when I met you, like the studio wasn't as cool looking as this, so it's funny how it's all kind of came together.
Oh, this looks beautiful. It's really nice.
It's not bad. Paul's done a good shift for that. I'd like to try and pretend that I helped out a wee bit with it, but I probably would be harsh on his efforts if I did that. So moving on. No, it's great to have you in, and I've not done one of these for a couple of weeks because I took a wee bit of a break. So actually being back in with somebody that's so outgoing and you can be comfortable with makes it easier, obviously. But there's so many things that I'm really fascinated by what you do. Like, and I think the first one that really popped out to me was the fact that you have. So is it Kintra?
Yeah.
With your twin sister.
Yeah.
Where she plays a violin.
Yeah.
And you DJ. And I seen that and I was like, how does that even happen?
I know.
Because like DJing and violin is such a different kind of concept, and like actually putting that together must be a really difficult thing to get the actual beat to be the right. I mean, I'll be honest, right? I know nothing about music. People ask me what my music taste is, and I'll just say, "It sounds good." Do you know what I mean?
No, I'm kind of the same, to be honest. No, I guess with Kintra, like, yeah, it is difficult. Sometimes I want to, batter my sister. But no, it's great. I'm really glad, like, we kind of do it together. It was kind of born because I started DJing myself about 5 years ago. And I think because I was like beginning to get some gigs and really enjoying it, I think my sister realised how much I was loving it. And she was like, I kind of want to get involved in this. And I was like, all right, okay. I can't even remember how the conversation took place. I don't even know who suggested it first, but I think because she plays violin. I mean, I do as well, but I am terrible. I don't even want to, nope. I don't even call myself a violinist because I'm not done it in years, but she was still pretty decent at it. So we're like, well, why not? Let's just give it a go. And our genres have changed. Like we first started off being quite, I guess, more house, kind of melodic house. And then as a few years have passed, we've become pretty techno. And I think it works better with the violin because like you've got like aspects of the music that do lend to violin, just with the melodies, and especially with techno, it can be quite haunting sometimes, kind of spooky. And I guess with the violin, it can be quite nice. Or so yeah, that's kind of, I guess how it works is we'll play a set or we'll be DJing or whatever, and she'll have like kind of a bank of tunes that she knows how to play violin to. So she'll make up the violin beforehand. She'll totally create a brand new kind of violin melody over this random person's track or artist's track, and then we'll be DJing live, and I'll say, right, Josette, I'm going to play this tune next, and she's like, okay, right, what one's that? And she's like, okay, and then we'll go. Or she has like done it off the cuff before when we've done it live, like totally improvised. But I've only asked her to do that once. But she has done it before off her own back. But we were playing this gig it was last year actually at Club 69. And we were playing, this isn't very techno, but whatever. It was like the last song. So it was Fly on the Wings of Love, obviously, such a banger. And I just said, right, just go play the violin. She was like, what? So she was like just kind of, making it up. And it worked because, she knows the song quite well. So. But yeah, I'm forever and on of her. You should be interviewing her, to be honest, instead, because she's the real talent. I just choose the tunes and mix them together. But
well, I mean, DJing doesn't look that easy to me, to be honest. When I watch it, I'm like, that's so much movement and having to figure out what the tunes are. But like, I feel like I've kind of skipped a couple of steps here, right, which is ironic. But Paul got that.
I'm really slow.
No, it's like it's funny. Just I love how what you'll find out with me soon is that I tend to thrive when I realise that somebody's not heard wheelchair jokes before. So I just bring out the whole the whole classic, all the classics, and just get as many laughs as I can, because when I go home and try and do it with my brother, that, he'd be like, shut the fuck up, kid, man, I've heard these a million times.
No, I didn't even click on it until he laughed. I was like, why is he laughing? It sounded very ironic to me.
It was very subtle though, to be fair, it wasn't.
It's a good one. That's good. That's quick. Exactly. It's quick. I'm not that witty.
I always say I would have been a good stand-up comedian if I could do the stand-up bit, right? You know what I mean? I'd have been so good. It's a shame, really. Anyway.
Oh, God.
Got sidetracked there. Right, so I was listening to an interview you did before where we were talking about how you started doing DJing in Ibiza.
Yes.
Now, see this whole, you seem to have a really big passion for music, obviously, and everything you do, and your sister is musical as well. So I was just kind of curious as to where this sort of love for music kind of came from, and how you became such a nice person today.
Well, I guess the love for music, it's kind of always been there, really. I didn't actually think I was that musical, and you hear of like these artists that kind of, I've always had a love for it since I was a baby. I was dancing, or I mean, I've been singing since I was like 3. But I actually thought I was quite a crap singer, to be honest. I thought I was pretty rubbish. I genuinely did, and I remember we kind of auditioned for this school, so it's for this like Dundee choir, because I'm from Dundee. I think I must have been about 8 or something. They came to our school to literally kind of like audition us, and we had like no choice in the matter. And then I guess I was picked, and I was pretty surprised, and I was like, oh, must be okay. And then I kind of started enjoying singing, and then I won this Scottish singing competition when I was like 11. Like it must have been like primary 7, so last year at primary school. And I was so surprised I won. I thought my sister was going to win. I was so surprised. I was like, wow. And I think that's when I realised, okay, I'm actually quite a good singer. And then, I ended up winning that. It's a specific kind of Scots competition in Dundee, but I ended up winning it like kind of citywide when I was 15, I think. So I was like, it's been since about like, I guess the age of kind of 8 when I started doing choir, started doing violin. I kind of liked music, and then as I got into my teens, that's when I thought I really want to pursue music as a career. I was really into music theatre. I started kind of doing all that when I started high school, but I didn't know how. You know what I mean? I did not know how. Because I'm not a fucking pop star. You know what I mean? It's not my style. Like I was never going to be a pop star. Like even though I liked singing, it wasn't really me. Yeah, it wasn't. And I remember me and Gisette both wanted like to do music as a career, but we had that conversation a few times, and we're just like, how? So it was always just kind of those things, and we're like, oh, we'll just do university. You know what I mean? We'll get the steps out the way, then we'll work it out. It'll work out. And I guess that was kind of a lazy, well, not lazy, but maybe a naive kind of way to look at it. Like, oh, it'll just happen. No. So I finished high school, went to uni, did law and Spanish, nothing to do with music. She did economics and Chinese, which is definitely nothing to do with music. And I guess like when I graduated, I was like, right, shit, this career in music isn't going to happen itself. Like, so you're going to have to do something. And I just, I didn't really like my career, my degree. Sorry, Spanish is great, but law was just boring. I didn't have a passion for it. I guess if you love it, I suppose it's good, but not for me. And then, I just thought, right, because I'd started doing my student radio in the last year of university, and I just loved it. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is class. Why did I do this for the first, my first and second year of uni? Why did it take me to 4th year to discover this, really? So I just thought I'd throw everything into it. And I was actually a bit, I wasn't sure I was going to say this, but it's not even a big deal. But I was like doing music theatre for my first 2 years of university, like really like so into it. Was in the society. All my friends were in this music, like this kind of music theatre group. And then in my last year of university, I didn't get in. I was furious. I was so not happy. I was just, you cannot imagine, because they were all my friends, you know what I mean, all my friends, and then like there was no kind of like hard feelings, but when you're not involved in like a group or society anymore, you kind of, it just naturally happens, you kind of get pushed out. So that kind of happened, and I was like, right, I'm doing this student radio now, I'm going to throw everything into this, you know what I mean? I don't have to worry about my music theatre group anymore. I don't have to I've got spare time now, so I threw everything into it. There was DJ decks in the studio, and I was like, right, I'm gonna learn how to do this. And also looked fun as well. It looked like kind of interesting. I was like, might as well. And then I loved it, and I was like, this is great. Forgot all about not getting into the music society. I was like, whatever, and really just kind of came involved in the student radio, and then graduated. And I wasn't a very good DJ at that point because I'd only done it a few times, and it's quite hard. Like it is, like to actually get knowing how to do it. It is quite difficult, I suppose. There's a lot of buttons. So yeah, I just went to Ibiza and learned to DJ. Just did a course, and that was it. And then I came back, and I'm so grateful I did the course because it just gave me the confidence to actually go out and get gigs after that. Because they kind of gave you like a wee part of like the kind of the course. There was a wee lesson, a wee session on how to get gigs and stuff like that. So I was like, right, that's it. I'm gonna use that confidence and the knowledge, I suppose. And that was it. And then I decided, I was alongside the DJ, and I want to do radio. So I moved to Glasgow and started doing radio bits as well. And that was it. That's literally it. And that's kind of how, so that was a long story, but
that's a cool story.
Yeah, it was good. Like, I mean, and it's all worked out for the best. And it's kind of like what you said, like everything happens for a reason. That when I didn't get into that music society, I was genuinely devastated. Like, I was really gutted. But if I had got into that music theatre society in my last year of uni, I would never have become a DJ. So as gutted as I was at the time, it always kind of shows like, there's a silver lining, because I wasn't going to go in the West End. Like, that wasn't going to happen. So, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it was crap at the time, but it worked out. So that's how music happened. And then, I guess the career in music that I wanted is kind of happening, which is nice.
It's amazing. No, it's like, it's cool that you kind of started that story by saying how it will just happen, and then you got to a point where you were like, I need to actually try and do something here about this. But it's funny how it just ended up happening like that, like in the sense of like you didn't get something you wanted, and then you fall into something that was that kind of, you obviously knew you had some sort of passion for it, you just didn't know what direction that was going to go in.
Exactly. I didn't know how, and I guess with like DJ decks, until somebody puts them in front of you, you don't think. Or maybe more now, but see, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever, it wasn't as common to be a DJ. It was still common, no, not common, but it was still like known. Like, but now, maybe it's because I'm in the scene. That's why I know everybody I know is a DJ. But I do feel like it's more popular, and I think because it's so accessible, and that's great. You know what I mean? I think 10, 20 years ago, like, it was a lot more expensive to learn to DJ or to be a DJ because of the equipment and everything. Whereas now it's much more cheap. Like, it's great. So I think that's why, more people are getting into it. But me, I'd never even considered it. And I had like a girl I know from when I was really young. I grew up with her in Dundee. Hannah Lane, her name is. She's doing very well now, and I'm so proud of her. She's amazing. But I saw her on Facebook and stuff, and I'd see her doing this DJ thing, and I was at uni, and I was like obviously wanting this career in music, and I didn't even think once, oh, maybe I could get into that. Just didn't even think about it until I got into the studio. So
it's really cool how things work out that way. Like,
it is, it's quite nice.
Life is weird that way.
I know.
And you were saying how you'd never really thought about it, but I think like especially when you started off well singing, it's almost like people seem to get pushed into, like, when they think about music, especially, I mean, not as much now, but like you say, in past years, it's been a case of like, trying to get into being a singer or a performer or something like that, and kind of the pop star run, I guess. And it's like it's not really mainstream to be like, why didn't you become a DJ? Especially, I guess, I suppose, even more so for a woman, it's more like you're pushed more to that pop side of being like, let's try and make you into a glamour model star thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have any like women DJs that you sort of looked up to and you were like, well, I'd like to be like them, or was it just a case of making your own path?
No, I mean, when the very beginning, there was a DJ I saw on Instagram, and I'd listened to some of her stuff. Would never listen to her now, not because she's not good, just is not my style at all. Juicy M, her name is. I think she's from Australia. And the kind of music she plays is just very EDM. not me at all. But at the time, that's what I was kind of. I guess I was into that. Yeah, I was. No, I was. That kind of, Avicii kind of sound and all that. Martin Garrix, all that. So yeah, I would say I kind of looked up to her. I kind of thought, wow, she's doing a cool thing. But I've never really kind of been like, I want to do, what they're doing. I'm going to try and do it that way. I guess in the industry, like, you'll have people you respect and you admire and you think, damn, they're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing is, and you do like think, oh, I wonder how they got to where they are. But everybody's journey is so different. Like, it's so hard to even like follow the same path somebody else followed. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of it is to do with right time, right place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can definitely look at some women DJs in the scene now and think, yeah, they're doing a great thing, and I'm, pretty inspired. I guess that's a good.
Yeah. No, it's just because it's like for me, when you were talking about it, it's like I'm always curious about that, just because, like, I always thought someone in a wheelchair, like, you never even had anyone to sort of look up to or follow, like a sort of path to follow. If I said to somebody, I'm going to start a podcast, or I'm going to go and like have a wrestling match or play football, they would all be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? So you just kind of need to be like, I'm going to just, if there's no one to follow with, I'm just going to do it myself and see if I can encourage other people with disabilities to do the same thing, and just know that they don't have to be in this box. And I guess, like, I guess there's a lot of like similarities for what people with disabilities and women have faced in that regard, in terms of like being told they had to be a certain way, or there's only you can only do this, not this.
Yeah.
And I think like maybe 10 years ago, the idea of somebody in a wheelchair doing a podcast or a woman being a DJ was kind of like, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. Like, there's just, it's the perceptions of people, and I guess it's just the way things move on. Like, yeah, 10 years ago, it's not that common to see a woman DJ. Even now, sometimes I'll meet people who, other DJs would never say this to me because they're used to it. You know what I mean? They expect women DJs in the scene, and of course they do. But I'll meet somebody who's got nothing to do with music, just a total random kind of punter, and they're like, "Wow, it's great to see a woman behind the decks," and they're always dead positive about it. But they are sometimes a bit shocked. Well, not shocked, but just kind of pleasantly surprised. That's a good way to put it. And I guess you probably maybe can relate as well when if you tell people, I play football or I do whatever, they're like, oh, they're pleasantly surprised and they're curious. Well, how does how do you do that? So yeah, it's it's interesting. How do you do that? Do you play football?
Yeah. I play a sport called wheelchair football. I mean, it's not actually called wheelchair football. It's called power chair football. But I've been telling them that she call it wheelchair football because it's much more marketable. Everyone knows what a wheelchair is. Nobody knows what a power chair is, so call it wheelchair football. But that's an ongoing discussion.
Okay.
But no, it's like in a chair like this, like power chair, and they have a bumper that goes at the front, and it's like really fast, and you can turn and hit it and stuff like that.
That's cool.
It's exciting. But this is like, I think that's the biggest point of this podcast, is just to try and break down those barriers and have a conversation where you can go, right, well, is this something that, why are we not allowing people to think that they can achieve whatever they want to?
Yeah.
And especially, people have been so suppressed, and we're also used to having this idea of like what normal is and being normal and try to be similar to each other rather than embracing our own differences, which makes us all unique in the first place. You know what I mean? I'm starting to get preachy now. But
no, you're not. No.
But it's, that whole idea of like, the idea of somebody in a wheelchair playing football, when you hear it, is kind of like, how does that work?
Yeah.
But the point of what I'm saying is that it's only because people don't see people in wheelchairs. Like, the reason why that's so cool what you done when I first met you is because, like, people that don't really get to see many people in wheelchairs and that will just kind of be freaked out a wee bit, and they won't say that, but you can tell, like, oh, I don't know how to deal with this situation, or they're just not, because they've not seen it. It's like we're kind of like aliens to an extent, because they're just like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
So the way you were just like, yeah, sure, I'll push up this hill.
It's heavier than I thought. I was like, oh God.
It's like you didn't look at me and go like, oh, look at this wheelchair. You were just like, well, this guy's got a problem, I'll help him. Whereas a lot of people would have looked at it and been like, this is weird to me, I can't deal with this, and just, they wouldn't have said that, but you can feel it, you can tell.
Really?
And it's still pretty common now. Like, if I go in and out or something, somebody, like, people that I've never met before in my life will just come up to me and be like, it's so inspiring to see you out tonight. Like, fair play to you for coming out and all that. And I would just be like, I cheers, mate. Appreciate that. It's like so awkward though.
Do you mind those comments?
I just think it's not that. I think when I was younger, like see when I was like 18, 19, I had a bit of a hot-headedness about me, I guess, and I wouldn't take it very well. People would get punched and stuff, I guess.
What, you punched?
It wasn't, but it wasn't like I was a good puncher or anything, but I just would get annoyed about things and not handle them the right way, I guess.
Yeah.
It was a very frustrated young man, I suppose, would be the way to put it. But it was kind of one of the examples you used when you were telling your story, which I thought was really cool, like how you were talking about, like, you've been doing the musical theatre and they were your friends and that was your group, and it's like when you didn't get in, it wasn't just about not getting into the course, but you're not getting into your social group. The people that you've been hanging about with for the past couple of years and spending all the time with, and all of a sudden you're not going to be in that circle anymore.
Yeah.
So like your whole life off one decision of you not getting in this place is just completely changed.
Yeah, it was awful.
And when you were talking about that, it's like that one example is like what it's like to live a life with disability all the time, because it's kind of like you're like in school, for example, like people like talking to me, like I'm fairly chatty, and it's not like I didn't have a personality with people where I'm like I would hang out with that guy, you know what I mean? But then you would go to like a house party or like a night out, and it would be stairs and stuff, and you just couldn't get in basically. And eventually, I mean, I could get in here and there, but eventually it's like, oh, don't invite him because it's too much of a hassle to get him in this place. Or, they wouldn't say that, but you just could tell it was like, this is kind of a hassle to deal with this guy. So the inaccessibility kind of just alienates you from society as a whole. So then you need to figure out how you're going to process that and not be angry at the world so much, I guess, which is why I'm kind of doing this, because I feel like if you go, there's so many people with disabilities going through that, going to mainstream school and you're in a wheelchair and you're the only one in a wheelchair, and you're like, how come it doesn't matter how I am as a person, but because this wheelchair stopped me from going and doing the things that you know yourself, like in school, like that's a really important part, is being able to be in the social circle of going to these events and doing these things. And I mean, you're not in that, you're just not in anything, so you just become the kind of alienated sort of individual in the whole thing. So that's that whole process. It sucks to have happen anywhere, but that, I don't think people are aware of how much things not being accessible can affect their whole life.
But I've never considered it in my ignorance. I've never considered that because it's not my lived experience. But you explaining it like that is mad, isn't it? It's mad. Like, I've lived in flats in Glasgow. My flat right now, you wouldn't be able to come to my flat, or it would be very bloody difficult. Go up to the third floor, and there's no lift. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's, and I've never thought about that. It's just something, and you have to live with that. So
it's just about I mean, see, because obviously I know you're a good person. I know you seem very thoughtful. So that's what I'm saying though. Is it's like, it's not the people aren't good people.
Yeah.
They want to help the situation. They literally just don't know about it because it's not spoken about. Yeah. But that's what's so crazy about it. With all the social media, like in the world, and all the platforms to talk about these things, how that's still not a main talking point for like mainstream media. Like, it almost feels like disability itself was created as a way of putting us all in this one bracket and sort of saying, let's try and put these people at the side here because it's too much of a complicated thing to deal with, rather than actually saying, if you were to talk about these things that we're talking about on like a mainstream platform, then the amount of people like yourself that are good people that didn't know before that would now be aware would make such a huge difference in the perception of it all. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy to me. Like, one of the best examples that I use, and I feel like some people get it, some people don't, but I feel like it's quite a good way of putting it, because a lot of people have seen like this movie, and it's a simple way of trying to explain what I'm talking about. It's like, you ever seen the movie Elf?
Yes.
It's almost Christmas time, so I'll be watching that soon.
Oh yeah, no.
But I love the movie Elf, right? But it wasn't till I started talking about this kind of stuff that I've started thinking about that in a wider concept of being like, right, so that scene where like his Will Ferrell's in the North Pole. Now, this guy in our world is what you would call a fully able human being. Like, he's not disabled. You wouldn't say that Will Ferrell's disabled. Do you know what I mean? He's not. So, but when he's in the North Pole, there's like a scene where he goes through and he can't fit in anywhere. Like, nothing works for him. They don't know what to do with him because everything's either too small, or he can't do the things that they can do because they're different than him, basically.
Yeah.
And it's not that nobody in the movie saying, none of the elves are saying he's disabled now because he can't do this or that. It's because that world that they're in is not designed for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way that world's designed makes him quote unquote disabled in a way, but in our world he's not, because it's designed for him.
Yeah. So that's so interesting. I've never thought of it that way. Like, and it's so true. Like, but the thing is, anybody could become disabled.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and people don't realize that anybody can. You know, just wrong place, wrong time, accident, anything. Just and then that's it.
Exactly.
But it shouldn't be a disability, I guess, if everything was kind of set up for it. God, yeah, you don't think about that.
Yeah, and it's not even. I guess that the concept of disability in that sense isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like it's been made to be a bad thing because it's been so stigmatized.
Yeah.
As this sort of weird thing, you know, and it's, you know, the idea of like, if you're disabled, you're not like normal, and this idea of, you know, like what normal is. I've always thought it's like, how bizarre is it that we actually know that it's been proven that no two individuals are exactly the same. Yeah. So then what does normal even mean if everybody's different in some way? Do you know? Like, that's bizarre to me how that's even a concept. But like, this is just but the problem is, I wouldn't think any of this if I wasn't in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't get annoyed at people that don't know this stuff. It's just a case of bit by bit, the more you have these conversations and the more you make one more person aware of it, it's like you're slowly getting more people on side of being like, how can we start actually tackling this? And you make a really good point about saying how, you know, anyone can become disabled, but something I've been thinking about recently more so is that the chances are, like, people don't like talking about this because it's kind of I suppose it's sort of a bleak way of looking at it, but it's not meant in a bleak way of looking at it. It's more the reality of life. I feel like it's like we all get old, right? So everybody gets old, and the chances are at some point as you get older in your life, you're going to need some sort of assistance in some way. If you live to be, you know, 70 or 80 years old, you're probably going to need some sort of assistance with something, you know, and you're not going to be as able as you are right now. So in a sense, we all in some way eventually, if we live long enough, become disabled.
Yeah.
Or just, and if you would take the word disabled out of it, you just become in a position where you need to adapt and you need more assistance with certain things. But because that's also why you see so many elderly people alienated and not thought about when it comes to like the cost of living crisis and the lack of heating and foods and stuff like that. It's like the idea that elderly are alienated in a life where everybody gets old is so bizarre. Like, how strange is
like
that?
you don't think about it. You're like, oh, it's never going to happen to me, and then suddenly 30 years later, it's like, oh God, it's really. Like,
and it's like, it's like it's never going to happen to me. It's such a that's like the mainstream sort of narrative, and it's so ignorant, it's unreal, because it's like, we literally, like, whether you like it or not, everybody that you know and yourself are going to get old.
No.
It's not a matter of like if this is going to happen or not. It's going to happen. It's like that is, but it's like, so if you would actually look at it like that, you would go, right, so what is the long term? The long term strategy should be adapting for everybody, so that everybody, as they get older, can live as much of a full life as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, you get to include more people that are, you know, like me, that are, you know, in the sort of prime of their life, but they're also needing that now more so than when they're older, because that's what they've been born with. And for like years of your sort of young life, you kind of grow up and you're thinking, what can I, you know, I was talking about being angry about stuff and being frustrated with things. Part of that is because eventually you just start going, is this my fault? You know, what can I, like, how can I, you know, if my legs just worked and I would be normal or whatever, you become fixated on how you can fix it, as if there's something wrong with you and you need to fix it. But that's what the world is showing you. That's what the world's telling you. The world's telling you that you're the problem.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly.
But it's like, rather than saying I should change something that I can't change, why can't we change the world to adapt to what I need? Do you know what I mean?
No, totally.
So none of that. I didn't even write any of that down as well. Yeah. So I don't really know how we got onto such a deep topic there.
I know. It's interesting. It's really interesting.
But it was just, as I could sort of like see there's like a scene of like a sitcom I was watching once where it was like talking about how you have a conversation and then about something and you won't realise what something means, and there's like this sort of glass shattering in your head moment where you go, oh shit.
That happened just there.
I can see that in your eyes.
God, my face is like an open book, man. Actually,
the whole way through it, I was like, that's why I was like kept going into deeper points, because I could see that you were like, oh shit, man, I can't believe this. No,
you just don't consider it, and it is ignorance, and it is just kind of, but not in a bad way. It's just, you know, you don't think about these things on a daily basis, whereas things I think about, you've probably not, you know, had to worry about or even considered. So yeah, it's just interesting, really. Yeah, it's good to have these conversations. No, it's good to have these conversations.
I feel like we should get back to talking about you, though.
Oh, well, if you want.
Because that is the point. This is your time to shine, Frankie. I can go on about that all day. You know, Paul knows this, you know. There's at least like 10 minutes of every podcast and we're talking about this.
Really? That's good.
So hopefully, you know, people that have came to listen to you will take something from that as well. That's the thing. But so we talked about your kind of music with your sister, which I thought was really fascinating, because I think that, you know, playing the violin is very different to DJing, and the fact you combine that is really cool. Like, it seems like a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, thank you.
But you were talking about your kind of taste in music and how that sort of evolved from when you first seen somebody DJing to now. Like, so it was a kind of a big journey for you to figure out how you were going to, you know, find that passion in music, what your lane was going to be, if you like.
Yeah.
And then there's so many different genres of music and DJing. Like, how did you come to the style that you do now and figuring out what you actually like to do?
I think, you know, with DJing, your style's always going to change. When I started, it was actually quite, I don't know if you're aware of the genre, but it's trap music. It was quite big, actually, I guess, 2016, 2017. Yeah, I was kind of really into it, actually. Kind of trap, that EDM style. And then I did my DJ course and they were all playing house music, and I was like, yeah, so I don't think Jordan Camoli is going to go down really well, this kind of like big beat. So I kind of tried out some of the more house stuff, and yeah, I guess at first I was kind of playing more deep house, and then I came back to Glasgow. I was kind of, I've never really been like a house DJ. I kind of started playing like kind of more, I guess, alternative things. Still electronic music, but it's just hard to describe. Disco, I got quite into disco. It was also quite popular as well. And then lockdown, you know, I was playing a lot of like kind of housey disco electro. Then lockdown I was playing a bit of breakbeat as well, and then in lockdown I started playing a lot of techno, and I think it was just kind of the friends I had made in Glasgow that influenced me quite a lot with that, because they were playing it a lot, and I was like, well, actually techno's a lot better than I thought, because to me I thought techno was just kind of dish 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 dish, and that was it. And then they were like, no, this is actually techno. I'm like, oh, I actually like that tune. Like, I've heard it before. I didn't realize it was techno, and then and you're always kind of developing your sound, and you listen to more artists, discover more artists, and obviously there are trends too, which are always a bit, you sometimes fall into them, but it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. Like I say, I was playing breakbeat, maybe 2019, quite a lot, and breakbeat's now very in fashion. And then kind of garage has come into fashion, so now I'm like, oh, I'm going to start playing more garage as well, because I was, so it just kind of changes. But yeah, I like everything, like you said, kind of like everything. I maybe wouldn't necessarily play certain things, although I've played Arctic Monkeys before in one of my sets, but that was just for fun. I was just closing. You can always get away with a daft tune when you're closing a set. You always do. But it's the worst thing if it doesn't go down well. Because like the last tune, you kind of have to like think, okay, it's going to be a good one, and if you play something that flops, it's like, oh.
Yeah. See, as you're talking about that, like, I love how you're so open to every type of music, and that's what I've just find it strange how people, like, there's no genre of music I would say to you that I don't like, because I'm like, I feel like that's just closed off in a way. It's like, because every sort of, as much as I don't know much about it, it's like every sort of tune's sort of fascinating to me in a way.
Yeah.
I've been like, how did this come about? Like, I got in a phase where I was listening to classical music at one point, and I was like,
it's beautiful, to be fair.
And I'm like, what? But I'm kind of like, people would ask me, and I wouldn't say, because I'm like, is it strange that I listen to classical music?
I know, you're going down the street in your headphones, and you're like, and it's just like Chopin or Beethoven.
Yeah, it's like people just wouldn't expect somebody of like our age, I guess, to be doing that. But it's I think there's a point to be made for like learning about how these things all come about, and it's just very interesting to me. But oh my god, there was a point I had to all that there. And it's just totally.
Oh, I hate when you do that. I hate when that happens. There's sometimes like moments when I'm interviewing people, and you have the point, and you're like, cool, and then for a second you just forget, and you're like, and they look like they're about to finish what they're saying, and you're like, and there's that feeling, and then you're like, oh, now I remember. But clearly you've not remembered. So.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that, because that pause has allowed me to remember.
Oh, so you have remembered. Great, happy days.
I'm very happy. See. And that's the beauty of interviewing somebody that has interviewed people, because they understand like what happens to you sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when you've not got a sheet of paper in front of you.
Which is good, honestly. Like the amount of people that do need sheets of paper, and sometimes I do as well. Like if it's for work, then yeah, I'll definitely have a sheet of paper, because often there's questions they want you to ask, and it's like a kind of comfort thing, isn't it? So for you just to kind of wing it, it's good. I guess podcast, it is more kind of casual, but impressive.
It can be casual, but there's definitely an element of like, you need to have somewhere to go with it in case they I've had guests where I'm like, right, you thought to yourself, this is a really good question, ask them, and they give you like a two like sentence answer, and then that's it, and then you're like, that was my whole thing.
I know, and you're like, God, there's half an hour that I need to make up somehow. I
definitely want to go into your interview style in a bit, but before I forget this again, as you were talking about, you mentioned like lockdown and stuff, and kind of obviously everything was sort of put on hold a little bit. You had just started kind of going out and getting gigs and stuff like that, and then we had this sort of 2-year sort of lull period, I guess, for every sort of creative outlet. Now, what I was kind of curious about from the point of view of DJing and like being in front of a crowd, like, you spoke about how you went and you went on this course and they taught you some things, and then you go and get gigs. Like, what was it? First of all, what was it feeling like when you first did a gig in front of a like live crowd? Because like, it's one thing doing all this stuff, and then like being like getting good at it yourself and like being like, I can do this, and then all of a sudden you're like in front of a live crowd and you're like, oh, they're not liking this or they're liking this, I need to change this up, because adapting to what the the feel of the audience is like. But then you have like this sort of at least a year break where there's nothing going on pretty much in like 2020. So then you kind of I'd imagine you probably get out of the sort of the way of getting good at that is getting used to the crowds and getting used to that atmosphere, and then it's sort of taken away from you. So like, what was that first? Obviously, I'm talking about like when you first started doing it, that feeling, but also having to come back after the pandemic. Like, was it must have been quite nerve-wracking.
First ever experience, I was actually in Ibiza. Just the course they got us some gigs, and I played. Oh, the first time, I really properly played to a crowd. I was in Ocean Drive Hotel. And it wasn't like a massive crowd, like 30 people. It was like a kind of a smaller event. It was 30, 40 people. It wasn't huge. But they were like, everybody was loving it. Not because the tunes were good. I don't even think the tune was that great. But I think just because we're all like supporting each other, we're all doing the kind of the course together. And it's hard to explain the feeling. It's really difficult. Because obviously I'd sang in front of people before. I'd done shows. But it was a different feeling somehow. It's weird. It's hard to describe because you're still performing, but it was just, I don't know. I just had a great time. I was just like, this is awesome. And I remember coming off the decks and being like, oh God, I want to go back on. Like, because it was just, it's so addictive. It's just like an amazing feeling, like playing a tune and people are really enjoying it. It's just, it's mad. I guess you can say I've kind of become used to it now. Because like that first feeling, like I had never felt anything like that before. And now I'm kind of like, I'm used to it, but it's still great. You know what I mean? Like when people cheer to a song, we played Bump It by the Black Eyed Peas last, when was it, Sunday? It was actually a girl I met when I was playing a few weeks before at a bar, and she'd actually requested that tune and I played it, and I was like, belter, and just like she enjoyed it so much, and I was like, I'm gonna play that like in an actual like nightclub, because it's different playing in a nightclub and in a bar. So we were playing at a festival just there at the weekend, and I was like, I'm gonna try and play that tune that she asked for, and then obviously she wasn't there, but the crowd just went off, and I was like, it's so hard to just like describe that feeling, just seeing people going crazy. But I guess like your kind of question about what was it like coming back after lockdown. It wasn't nerve-wracking. I think it's like riding a bike, DJing. Once you learn, you know how to do it. Obviously, like you can. Well, I don't even know. I've not been doing it long enough to know what it's like to be out of practice because I was still practicing in lockdown. I think I guess it's different playing in your bedroom to a crowd, but it's still the same thing. So, what was my first gig? Actually, no, see what? No, I'm lying. It was nerve-wracking. I'm remembering now. No, it was bloody nerve-wracking. I think it was just the crowd. It wasn't like the actual doing it. It was like
exactly.
The crowd. And I remember, oh God, no, sorry, you're bringing back memories. Yes, I was playing at this event last August, and I think it was August or August 2021, of course, when everything came back. And I remember saying to my pals before, I'm really nervous. And they're like, what? You'll be fine. I was like, and then it was absolutely sound. And then like the first two tunes, you're fine. But I remember being like kind of strangely nervous. But I think because a lot of these people that I was with at the gig, like I'd made friends with them kind of during lockdown, so they'd never seen me DJ before. But it was a bit nerve-wracking. It was, but then now it's not. It's just kind of and once you're back into it, it's all fine. But it was just strange being back in a room where you could actually stand next to people and not worry about social distancing. I went down to Blackpool when the clubs came back. So obviously they came back in England before they did in Scotland, and I was not waiting. So I went down to Blackpool, and it was such a weird feeling being in a club again. I was like, I'm kind of into my 20s here, like, you know what I mean? And this isn't a new experience, but it felt new. It was really weird. It was like being 17, 16 again when being in a nightclub. And you shouldn't be that young, but it felt like that. It was very strange. And I just remember being so happy. Oh, I was so happy. I was just like, I had a big smile on my face. And I was like, I can't believe this. And then we went to the bar and everybody was like, happy. And I'm like, oh, chatting away. How old are you, 18? I'm like, oh my God. I don't feel good anymore. Oh, but no, it was great. I hope lockdown never happens again. It was the worst period of my life. Probably a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody that's so creative and loves being in front of a crowd and doing what you do, to just have that taken away from you for such a long time must have been tough.
It was horrible. It was awful. Like, now you can look back and think, like, okay, like, it wasn't all bad, this and that. But no, it was pretty fucking terrible, to be honest. And I'm glad it's over. Thank God. If I ever go back to that, then...
Do you think, like, so, you're talking about that kind of, I guess a good word would be like adrenaline rush, or just that overwhelming feeling of just loving what you're doing, kind of thing? Or, like you were saying, it's hard to describe, but I'd imagine those are sort of along the right lines. When you have such a great like release like that, but it's such a overwhelming thing, it feels so special to you, and then you sort of don't have that. Like, was there? Did you have to sort of channel that? Like, for example, like I'm very much like an adrenaline junkie. Like,
what are you?
I just like things that are, like, for example, like that's why I go to the gym all the time, because I just enjoy that feeling of like,
oh,
this is tough.
I wish I enjoyed that feeling, man. I would be a bit slimmer than I am now. It's so annoying. See, trying to motivate myself to like work out.
Yeah,
it just doesn't happen. Anyway, I'm envious of that. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
no, it's like that was probably a bit. But the point is like that feeling of like you just when you feel a buzz of something, and it took me a while to try and channel that into the healthy things rather than not so healthy things. But when you have that and you're sort of used to that in your routine, because you seem like quite a chilled person from the like. I mean, I don't know. Maybe ex-boyfriends on this will disagree when they listen to this.
Oh God, yeah, they definitely will.
But on the times that I've spoke to you and met you, you seem like a kind of relatively chilled out person. But was it hard to like? So you're obviously in the pandemic. Did you have to like channel that energy into something else, or was it just a case of feeling like you've been tortured for a year before you could go back and do it?
Pretty much. No, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting you say chilled out, because I think I come across as quite chilled out in like a normal setting. But I think if things are chill, I'm chill. You know what I mean? Like, this is pretty chilled out setting. I mean, so I'm probably coming across pretty chill. But if it's not a chilled out setting, I could be a queen stress head. And people tell you I am queen stress head. I need to calm down. But I think the things I get stressed out about are stuff I'm passionate about. You know what I mean? It's because I care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but
a natural stress. That's a natural stress.
Yeah. It's not like I don't get. Well, I don't know. Maybe exes would disagree with that. Anyway.
That was just a joke, baby.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway,
we all have people. Like
yeah,
that,
we do. We all do, don't we? But yeah, with lockdown, it was just it was. Did I channel my energy into other stuff? I had plans to. I definitely had plans to. I was going to write a book. I was like, God, I've got all this time. I'm going to write a book. And I wrote like a page. Literally, maybe 2. I don't know, but I'm still going to write that book. But it was just time actually just got away from you. Like, I spent a lot of time still doing DJ stuff, even though we weren't actually playing live. I was still kind of organising. Like, we had like a little mix series going for this collective I'm running. We had live streams with me and Josette. We produced quite a bit. Me and my sister produced our first EP for Kintra, which is our DJ violin duo. And that took up a hell of a lot of time. So actually, all the spare time I thought I would have, I didn't actually have that much in the end. And it was, I think it was also quite hard to motivate yourself some days, because when there's no end in sight, what are you motivating yourself for? You're just waking up and you're like, it's Groundhog Day again. I'm going to go through the room, go into my little office room and get the laptop out, do my work and then tomorrow's the exact same. And I was very groundhoggy. Didn't like that at all. I always need to have something to look forward to. And that kind of motivates me. So I think, the motivation wasn't always there. Because like I say, there's no end in sight. It's like, oh well, tomorrow is just the same, so I'll do it tomorrow. But no, I think I did a fair bit of music stuff. I did keep myself fairly busy, but it was just horrible. I like going out. I like socializing. I'm a very big what's the word? Huge extrovert.
Yeah.
Massive extrovert.
Where do you think that comes from? Like,
why am I an extrovert?
Yeah, like just that whole kind of, because a lot of people struggle with like social anxiety, and one of the big things I struggled with doing this was the idea of speaking into a microphone.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. Like,
well, I guess the thing is that's a wee bit different though. Like, the thing is, I think anybody gets a bit nervous when you put a microphone in front of them. Like my first time I did student radio, I was terrible. And I was so nervous. Oh my God. And it was just a daft student radio. Nobody was really listening, or maybe I shouldn't say that, but to me, there was probably like 10 people listening, and now that doesn't seem like a lot, but at the time I was like, oh my God, crazy. But I guess with the whole extrovert thing, it's more kind of, being around other people, and there's like with no mics or whatever, I just like being around other people. I like talking to people. I love meeting new people. And I'm always like kind of getting new friends and stuff, and I think that's because I just love meeting new people.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it and finding out. So yeah, I don't know why I'm such an extrovert. My sister's the exact same. My dad's the same as well. So maybe it comes from him. Probably comes from him.
It sounds like you just enjoy connecting with people.
I do, yeah.
And that's like, I think the older you get, you realise that that's kind of what life's all about. It's just sort of having that experience with somebody else and getting to know them. And I mean, the more people you connect with, you kind of start realising it's crazy how we all have these unique different scenarios that we go through, but we all kind of feel the same emotions.
Yeah.
I've had, and that's been one of the most rewarding things about doing this is I love meeting new people as well, but I don't drink anything like that anymore because the world doesn't need to see me drink anymore.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm a very outgoing person that likes to be social like you, and it's like, well, it wasn't the reason why I started doing it, but the more you do the podcast, the more you meet these interesting people, and it was like a reason to when I bumped into you, it was like, she seems quite interesting. Like I would be interested to talk to her, and I didn't know anything about you at that point. And it's like, and the podcast was like a way of being like, no, like, what other situation in life can you just sit and talk to somebody for like an hour and a half about their life?
Yeah, no, you're right.
So I enjoy that aspect of it, like how you get to know people, and it's crazy how like somebody will sit across from me and be like, if you were to look at us visually, you would think two totally different people. And you talk to them and you're like, actually, we're quite similar. Or we've been through these things that are totally different, but we both feel the same about them, which is kind of, I mean, like, for example, that example you gave of you not getting into the musical theatre and then me talking about that, it's like people wouldn't see a similarity in that. But I guess the way to get rid of stigma and stuff is by sort of showing that we're all human.
Yeah.
And we all go through these things.
By seeing the similarities and situations, yeah.
Rather than seeing the differences.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's really cool. And there's so much to what you've done that I think is really cool. But there's I feel like I need to mention this before going any further. And I'm sorry if I'm forgetting the entire name of this. The main thing I remember is Polka Dot.
Oh, Polka Dot Disco Club. I know. Yeah, people always just kind of like, is Polka Dot? Is it Polka Dot Disco? I'm like, whatever you want, man. It's all good. Yeah, Polka Dot. Yeah. I started that 2.5 years ago, roughly. But I had the name for ages. God, I had the name for like 4.5 years. Like, I knew I wanted to start a collective. Like, I knew I wanted to do events. That was kind of my thing that I had in my head that I wanted to achieve with DJing. But at the time when I conceived the name Polka Dot Disco Club, I'd only been doing DJing for a year. I was just out of uni, so I didn't really have a full-time job yet. Didn't really have like stable finances. And I think the main thing, and a lot of promoters don't realise this, a lot of DJs who get into promotion, they don't realise the expense that goes into putting it on a night.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's a big risk sometimes financially. And I wanted to be completely secure. I was like, I'm not putting on anything I don't have complete security. I don't want to make a loss and like be struggling for the next month. Like, how am I going to live? So it wasn't the right time, but I had the name. And then,
it's a cool name.
Thank you. And then, we just went in Dundee and we realised there was a lack of women DJs in Dundee. And there's those women DJs in Edinburgh and Glasgow, and there was kind of collectives doing similar things, like basically giving opportunities to women DJs. And I just thought Dundee just needed something like that. So we ended up working with Dundee Union and teaching 6 girls to DJ. There's kind of an application process, but we wanted it to be completely accessible, so we didn't charge them anything. Of course, it was just completely free. We actually probably went out of pocket because we were traveling through to Dundee all the time. I was based in Glasgow, my sister was based in Newcastle, but it didn't matter. Like, we weren't doing it for like monetary gain. We wanted to like bring people into music who maybe normally wouldn't have got a chance to, or maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity to. And that's what it was all about. That was the purpose, give this opportunity to people that maybe wouldn't have had it otherwise. And then at the end of the kind of the 4 weeks we taught them to DJ, they played at the International Women's Day event at Dundee Union. So we got them that gig, and that was class. And then and that was it. Like, we just kind of off the back of that, obviously lockdown happened, and that kind of made us a bit stagnant for a while. And then because of lockdown, I became quite like more firmed up in the Glasgow scene. Like, I met more DJs and got more connections. So after lockdown, it kind of transpired that this opportunity came up at Berkeley Suite to host events there. So it kind of made sense to move. So it was annoying because I did want to stay in Dundee. I wanted to, that was the whole point, to make the nights in Dundee. But it just, Berkeley is such an amazing venue. And it was just an amazing opportunity that we just really wanted to pursue. And I'm so glad we did. And Dundee, it was difficult because we don't live there anymore. And I've not lived there for a good 10 years. So even that's where I'm from. And I've always got that kind of special place in my heart. It's home. But it's not home. I say home right now for me is Glasgow. So and that's where the events kind of started. We started doing it in Glasgow, and we always try and make an effort to book marginalised genders. It kind of started off as a women thing, but I kind of realised, it's not just women that are, I guess, don't have equal opportunities in music. You've got trans, you've got non-binary. So we kind of try and focus on marginalised genders now. And it's great. I love it. It's so fun, just meeting loads of people, putting on events. It's great fun. I'm really excited to see where that grows. Just kind of keep putting on events, and I love it. It's great.
It's amazing. There was a line there you said that really got me. It was like, try to give people an opportunity that maybe wouldn't have had that chance. And it's like you sort of discovered this passion, I guess, on a whim in a way. The way it all kind of came about is sort of unique, and you've been able to kind of live your dream in a way, and then you get to a point where you can give something back. So to give it back to the point where you can get people involved that maybe didn't have the chance to is really cool. Like, you have a lot of credit for that. Like, it's the kind of thing where people maybe don't do that kind of thing enough, but it's like they realise how lucky they are to be in that position. It's like, how can I help more people get involved in this and experience this joy that I have for it as well?
Yeah.
So
and it was great doing that. I really enjoyed doing that, and I didn't think I'd be a very good teacher, but it was okay. And we've done some workshops since. We've done some DJ workshops, more kind of taster sessions, not as focused as the 4 weeks that we did it back in start of 2020. But and it's good, and it's always great, somebody being introduced to a new skill that they didn't think they maybe. And it's just good to try it, My little sister, I've kind of shown her a little bit, and she wouldn't even think to DJ. I know she wouldn't unless we hadn't done it. And now I think she's wanting to get her decks and stuff.
Oh, really?
Like, okay.
Nice.
So might go back to back, me, Josette, and Trinity, but we'll see.
That'd be really cool.
I know, I don't really know what her style of music is. I don't know if she's really so into the techno right now, but it might grow on her. It grew on me, so it might grow on her.
But it's like, at first when you first got into it, you didn't see it being your passion. And it's like people, like you're giving people the chance to sort of, there could be people that come at you that haven't looked at it as an option, and then they discover it being something they really enjoy, and it's what they want to do. So the fact that you're doing something that maybe you kind of think, it would have been cool if this was here for me, so now you're doing it for them, it all kind of comes full circle. So
yeah, I think giving people the opportunity and then seeing people who, I've maybe taught to DJ make a career out of it from those skills I gave them, I'm like, it's a great feeling. It's a really good feeling.
That's amazing.
I guess that's yeah.
Is there anything that you want to do that you haven't done yet?
No, I haven't done. What do I want to do?
What are your biggest DJ goals, for example?
Oh, DJ goals. Oh, it's just I want to. I don't even know. I guess I love traveling, right? That's what I love. I traveled quite a bit before university and then even during uni and after. I love it so much. So to be able to go to places to DJ, to travel to DJ, that's it. That's all I want. That's literally all I want. I don't even care about getting paid like loads. Obviously, I want to get paid enough to sustain myself, but and obviously like kids down the line, so it'd be nice to have enough money for them. But I don't.
Obviously,
no, of course. I know, but it's just it's just traveling. I just love to be able to travel through, and I've done some class gigs in some amazing places. I got to play Switzerland, and I'd only been DJing like less than a year at that point. That's cool. I was so class. It was the best festival I've ever been to. Or definitely one up.
How did that come about? Like, how did you manage to get
just just like applied.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Take a chance.
Yeah, because like they kind of some festivals do this. They look for people to kind of send in mixes or whatever. So I did, and I got it, and it was great. But then sometimes that's not how it always works. Sometimes like promoters will approach you, and we had that a few times. So me and my sister got to play as Kintra in Czech Republic at a festival, which was awesome, so good. Our sound was quite different back then. We were more house, but it was still. We'd only been doing it for like, I think like 4 months at this point. We were like, this is mental. It was such like a pinch me moment, like, and people were recognizing us afterwards, like walking through the festival. They're like, oh my god, you guys were Kintra. So, and it's just a great feeling.
Yeah.
So I think being able to travel, that's the goal, to get to the point where you're able to like do it quite often. That'd be great. I mean, I get to do it to an extent, even if it's within the UK. I love traveling. When I get to go to Manchester, I get booked there. I'm like, yes, it's the best. I just love it. I just love going in a wee hotel and just like
the feeling of it.
just having a wee cup of tea. I love the cups of teas, man. I'm just like, oh my god, it's free. So I have a wee cup of tea. I'll sit and I'll just kind of sit on the bed, look about. I love it. It's just a simple thing, isn't it?
There's an element of like you never know what's going to happen as well when you go to these places, like who you're going to meet and what.
Totally.
It's like that's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
You're not just in the same cesspool that can be Glasgow. Sometimes.
I know. I mean, we've got a gig coming up in 28th of October in London. Me and Josette. I'm so excited for that. Again, the wee hotel room. Just yes.
Definitely worth getting a ticket for that, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
But at least if you get to a point where you can travel, you can, when you eventually have kids, you can decide where you want them to be born. Like
I know.
Do you want
a passport, an EU passport. Oh my god.
Do you want them to be Spanish or Belgian or what's? It's like. I
know. But no, it's great. It'd be mad to actually be able to take your kids DJing with you. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
imagine I'm still doing it and. Well, God knows how long it's going to take till I have a kid. Probably at least 10 years. But, you know what I mean? If I'm still doing it 10, 15 years time and be able to bring your kids and with their little headphones and just behind the decks, like, ooh, that'd be fun. I'd like that.
No, I hope that happens for you. No, I think I've gone over most things, but I touched on this earlier. How I was kind of finishing this point. Like, you've interviewed quite a few people, and I'm wondering, like, for somebody that's got this passion for DJing, like, how did the actual process of becoming, like you do that for the BBC, which is pretty cool, big platform, and you've interviewed some big names in the music industry. How did you end up becoming that kind of person doing interviews?
Yeah, Well, like I say, when I was doing student radio, it wasn't just the DJing I was interested in. It was kind of all aspects of radio, kind of maybe production, presenting. I was just really keen to get to know more about it. So when I graduated, I didn't take very long, and I moved to Glasgow because that's where more of the opportunities were, especially well at the time anyway. And yeah, I moved to Glasgow, started doing work experience at a few radio stations, managed to get work experience at BBC Scotland. And I loved it. It was really good. It was the afternoon show, and I was doing a 2 week placement there. And remember I'd said to them like, "Oh, I love this. It's great." And they knew I was into music, so we chatted about that. And they're like, "It's such a shame that when you do work experience, you don't really get a job out of it. Like it's just kind of you do the 2 weeks and it's nice and that's it." Because it's just not how it works. There's more of a formal process than that. But they had said that why don't you apply for the journalism trainee scheme? Because you're obviously really into like this kind of stuff. And I had considered doing journalism after uni. Like I did look at some master's courses, but they were like 10 grand. And I was like, I might not even like this that much. Because I didn't know. I didn't know if I'd like it. When they said, apply to the BBC journalism trainee scheme, like you maybe give it a go. I was like, well, what's that? So I didn't even know what it was. And they told me like, just go on the website and, it's just an application process. And, they asked me these questions. So I went and had a wee look and I was like, fuck it. Fine, why not? So I applied. And then, yeah, luckily enough, I got through to the next round and through to the next round and then got the job. So I was very lucky, like extremely lucky. Because
lucky and talented.
Well, thank you, but no, there was like about 8,000 people going for it.
Wow.
I know, right?
You must be quite good then,
No, yeah, no, in a way, but I also think like I think there was 18 people that got it in the end. All from all over the UK. And I think they tried to kind of get people with different backgrounds, different kind of ideas of what journalism they're interested in. And I think the music thing kind of interested them, the fact that I was so kind of into the music scene. And not really many people who were on the course, well, actually none of them really had that kind of specific niche.
Yeah, niche, yeah.
So I think that did help. So yes, I guess, you could say, yeah, you were talented, but that helped having that niche knowledge.
It all has a factor to it, but
yeah.
Like, so it's all about finding the niche though these days. Like everybody's kind of, I think if you could you have such a clear idea of what your passion is, people feel that,
Yeah, well, I think that helps with the job. So, I am the person people know as, Frankie. Basically, she knows about electronic music. If there's a story, Frankie probably knows. And there's been a few times like in my office, people have been like, "Oh, Frankie, you know that person, or this has happened. Do you know about this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So, yeah, I've kind of developed a slight niche for myself, I suppose. And then with the interviews, it was just a case of, it's a program that I've done the interviews for, the edit, BBC Scotland, and yeah, it was just a process of approaching them, being like, "I've got this potential interview. Are you interested?" And they were like, "Yeah."
Cool.
Go wing it, see what it's like. And yeah, I think because they hadn't seen any of my stuff before, so I went and just did it, and then they liked it, and then they've let me do a few other things. So but obviously it helps that I work at the BBC. You know what I mean? Like I'm not just some random like knocking on the door. "Hi, can I do this interview for you?" But like you know what I mean. It's a program. It's within news. I work in news. You know what I mean? It's all kind of interconnected. So that's kind of how it came about. But yeah, it was great. Like I love being able to interview people, especially that kind of share that very similar passion to me. Because you know what they're talking about. You ask the question. Although sometimes you need to watch. You're not too specific, especially when you're editing. Like I think I've left a few things in before, and I've had it checked over, and they've been like, "What? I don't even know what you're talking about there. Like you guys are having a conversation yourself." Yeah, it's probably true. You take that out. But no, it's good. It's I love it.
What's been some of your like favourite people to interview?
Well, I've interviewed a few people like at BBC, but also just like over time. I've had some good interviews because with student radio, Eats Everything was mad. I remember it was like my first big interview. That's crazy. He was so cool. He was such a nice guy. He was so nice. So Eats Everything was great. I made him eat everything. It's quite funny. Went to a Chinese supermarket and got like the mochi balls, and we got all these like random like food to make him eat everything. Thought I was quite clever. a rare bit of wit from me, because I'm not very witty, but that was a bit of wit from me. So yeah, it was really good. The most recent ones I've done, like, with like LF System and Ewan McVicker, like, they've been great, just because they're such nice guys. I think it makes such a difference if the artist is really nice and down to earth. Because I've had a few interviews before that they've been standoffish, and they've, it's very much this interview, I'm just kind of rolling off what I've said before and I've rehearsed loads of times. But it's when it's not prepared, it's just kind of, I'm going to answer like like properly, like kind of like we're talking now.
Yeah.
I prefer a conversation. But yeah,
You feel like it's more spontaneous that way. Like.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good. It's just great, it's just. Nice.
Sounds like you're living the life anyway.
Wow. Yeah.
Like it must be quite surreal to think like these are all things I really enjoy doing and wanted to do, and I'm doing them all. And that's
I should think that more. No, I should. I'm honest. Like, I'm quite bad for, just doing something and I'm like, right, okay, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty bad for that, to be honest. And I think we can all fall victim to that, not appreciating your wins and just always looking for the next thing and not being content with what you've got. I think I can sometimes fall victim to that. I'm better at it now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, but I think it's not until you have these conversations you sit and think, actually, yeah, you're right, maybe I have done quite a few nice things and I should be like, sitting and reveling in that more, I guess. But it just kind of becomes, you're just kind of like, right, okay, like, what's next?
Well, life comes at you fast, but I think like when you had when you've had a specific dream or goal, and then your day-to-day life is working towards doing things that you enjoy, or waking up and doing, like, living your passion, and then getting to do these, it's one thing finding your passion, but then you're finding like side gigs that are kind of you still really enjoy, that you're getting to do, and then you get a wage off of it. It's like, that's
no, I know
it's hard, obviously. I get that. I've always been like that through my whole life. I've been like, what's next? And then I started doing a bit of therapy, and I was like, maybe I should try and enjoy the day-to-day life more.
I should do therapy. I think that would help me a lot.
Well, he's pretty good. Paul's a therapist.
I know.
So, but no, it's like, like have a off day, like a day off where you're just sitting there like, I can't believe this is my life. So many people are still figuring out what they enjoy and how to have a life where they can actually be happy, but you're living it. So
yeah, you're completely right. I know.
Congratulations.
No, you're completely right. No, thank you. No, it's just sometimes you forget. You do forget. You take things for granted.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's what it is. You really take things for granted, and I did. See, before lockdown, I remember calling my mum. I called her. I remember exactly where I was. I was in bed, and I had this trip to Costa Rica booked, and I had like London booked for when I came back from Manchester, and all these places booked for when I came back from my holiday. And I was maybe 2 weeks before my holiday, or maybe 3 or whatever. COVID was still not that much of a threat. Like, nobody was really talking about it like too much. And I remember just saying to my mum, like, I just don't feel great. I just feel a bit miserable. She's like, why? You know what I mean? It wasn't depression or anything like that. It was nothing like that. I just felt a bit, ugh. And she was like, but you've got all this to look forward to. And I was like, yeah, I suppose. She's like, Frankie, the fact that you can travel, the fact that you can go do these things and how all these fun things, like, appreciate that. And I'm just like, yeah, but of course I can do that. It's a given. Famous last words. 1 month later, guess who's locked down, sitting like on Facebook, like stalking people because there's nothing else to do. It was me, binge watching on Netflix because I can't go out. That was me. So yeah, it's so interesting, and it was so funny because I thought back to that conversation I had like only a month or whatever previously with my mum, and I thought, God, my mum was right. You know what I mean? Like, they usually are, aren't they? But I was just like, true. God, like, I totally took that for granted, and now I can't do all these things. And I said to myself, I will never take going out for granted again. And I have. You need to remind yourself, because you don't know what you've got until it's gone. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously a very cliche phrase, but it's so true. So yeah, it's just not. It's trying to remember to appreciate. And you forget, you do, unless you sit down, like you say, and take a day out or a moment out and actually force yourself to properly appreciate. And that's why like gratitude journals are good. I was
Yeah.
quite good at doing that in lockdown, and then I stopped. I've never really been good at keeping diaries and stuff like that. It's the routine that's quite bad for me, and the kind of discipline. I've never really been that great at that. But I think gratitude journals are good. Just kind of even a few things, 3 things a day. What are you grateful for? Like,
Yeah.
why should you appreciate what's going on right now?
See, doing it when you like what I've tried to I've started trying to do this, but not entirely all consistent. But you know, it helps sometimes. Like when you wake up, the first thing you do when I wake up is trying to think about like 3 or 4 things that I'm really happy about or grateful for. And for you, it could just be a case of like waking up and having a moment where you realise like I'm working towards all my dreams rather than doing a 9 to 5 job that's sucking the soul out of me. You know, everything that you're doing in your life are things that make you feel happy.
No, you're completely right.
Which is such a rare, you know, which is actually more rare than you realise, like, because there's so many people that are living miserable lives. You know
I know. And I think for me though, like, I'm just kind of, I would never want to do something that I don't enjoy, because at the end of the day, like with work, you spend most of your time at work. You do, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like however many hours a week at the weekend, but you know, you're at work most of your life. So if you're not doing something you enjoy, you know what I mean? And I know you're right, like, you know what I mean, you're so lucky that you're in that position, but to be honest, I wouldn't have had it any other way. Like I wouldn't have let myself.
Yeah, you made it happen.
I wouldn't. Yeah, but I'm so kind of determined. I wouldn't have let myself do something I wasn't enjoying. I think I even take that for granted, because for me it's just a given. I'm like, well, of course I'm doing something I enjoy, because I wouldn't let myself get like that.
Well, you just said how you know you maybe don't think you have much discipline or whatever, but like you had enough discipline and motivation to have the drive to be like, no, I'm not. I refuse to not let myself do something that I'm passionate about. That in itself is discipline, and it is motivating.
I suppose. No, you are right, and that's why I didn't stick with law. You know what I mean? Like when I did it, I was.
You could have easily went down the law path after.
Oh, I could have, but I just couldn't. I couldn't. Spanish though, love Spanish. Love Spanish.
I actually really want to learn Spanish.
It's not that bad. Like it's one of the easier languages to learn, because everything, like the way you read it is how you say it, which is, I know a lot of languages it's not like that. Like Portuguese is definitely not like that. French is kind of not really either, but Spanish it's easier to pick up.
Can you speak it fluently then? Like fluent Spanish?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like give us a line in Spanish.
Bueno.
You could say it. You could say anything to me and I wouldn't know what it meant, so you could just say it.
No, but bueno, no lo sé. No lo sé decir. Bueno, no, it's fine. I'm going to shut up because I'm just going to keep saying bueno, which means well. But yeah.
It's funny how shy that made you just then. It was like, you just all of a sudden you were like, I don't want to speak Spanish.
No quiero hacerlo. No, it's just, with the Spanish thing, it's weird. I feel like I'm 2 different people. When I speak English, I'm myself, like obviously myself, but when I speak Spanish, I'm kind of a different person. That's probably why I feel I'm dead. It's hard to describe. Kind of ditzy. When I speak Spanish, it's probably just because I can't express myself the way I want to. Obviously, like, I have fluency in the sense that I can understand basically everything that's been said and I can communicate. But I'm not as good as I was. I'm not. When I lived in Spain for my 3rd year abroad, like I was pretty good at this point. Like I had a wee boyfriend and we only spoke in Spanish. And that when you can have a relationship with somebody, that's when you know you're good. You know what I mean? Like, that's
like something out of a movie. You lived in Spain and had a wee like home in Spain with my boyfriend. You sound like you feels like you lived like a million lives.
Well. I sometimes feel like it. So obviously, you know, I've not lived in Spain for 5 years, so I'm not as good as I was. So maybe that's also why I was a bit nervous. Not nervous. Just, it's hard to.
It's a different. It's like it's just a. I mean, I guess it's one thing knowing how to speak Spanish, but like conveying emotions in a different language is, I guess, is. Different.
Yeah. It can be. It's just I feel like I lack the vocabulary a little bit now, because you just forget. But like, and it's the confidence thing, right?
Yeah.
So if I moved to Spain, or I not even moved, like there's these boys that I'm really good pals with in Glasgow. They're class, love them to pieces. I met them at a festival, and they're Spanish, and when I hang out with them, like the first half an hour is always a bit, and I kind of go into my cell and I'm a bit like, see, Bally, okay, I'm very quiet. But then within like half an hour, I'm just like chatting away. And it's just a confidence thing. It's a pure confidence thing. And I know if I lived there again, or at least spent like a few days in Spain, it'd be back to normal. But it's just, it's getting into
Process.
that, because you forget, don't you? Like, and if you don't keep up a skill, so that's why like, I try and watch stuff in Spanish, and I still I watch something in English on Netflix, but I always put the Spanish subtitles, just because like it's good to have it. You know? And that's a good way to learn if you're thinking about it. Spanish subtitles at the bottom, it's really good, because it's not ruining the film or the TV program, because it's still in English. It's just got to be Spanish.
I never thought of it like that.
It's good. It's really handy.
I really do want to learn another language, because I just think it'd be cool to. Well, there was a guy. I was in Geneva, and I'll make this the last story, because I feel like I have a tendency to ramble on when it comes to podcasts, if you've noticed this. But I could talk to you all day. That's what always makes it more enjoyable, when it's so easy to speak with the person.
Oh, totally.
Sometimes you're doing it and you're like, oh my god, like Paul's been here when I've had some people when it's like I've come in so prepared and ready for them, and they're just dry as anything, and you're like, oh my god, this is terrible. Yeah. You're thinking to yourself, was half an hour went by here, or how much more time do I need to fill before I can tell this person to get lost? That hasn't happened often, and I won't name them, but
of course
he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, no, there's like, I was in Geneva for a power chair football tournament for Scotland, and the Spain team were there, the Italian team were there, all these different teams, and one of the guys in our team, Thomas Pettigrew, I'll shout him out because he'll be like, why didn't you say my name? You should tell a story about me. But he's a really fun guy. He's quite young, but he's just got a good personality about him, and he knows how to speak fluent Spanish. Oh. So I'm sitting watching him speak to this guy in the Spain team, just like this fluent conversation. He's like 19 years old, and I'm going, there was something just really impressive about it. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Especially for someone that's 19. I was like, man, when I was 19, I was not thinking about learning Spanish. No,
but I started at 19, but it was purely because of uni. It is one of those things, like, I do think living there helps. Like, anywhere.
So I should move to Spain?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
You find accessible apartments.
Yeah, you would. And also a visa, which is pretty,
hard to come by these days.
Yeah, but no, it's just kind of immersing yourself in the culture, and it's great. It is a good feeling. It is nice, but it's kind of funny because now I did French in high school and I can't speak French at all. And when I find myself going to try and speak it, Spanish just comes out. So it's like I can only ever have two languages in my head, or you know what I mean. My brain's just like, nope, Frankie, it's too much.
Well, two languages is better than one, so fair play to you.
True.
I mean, listen, this whole conversation has been very enjoyable, and there's something about you that I'm very interested and excited to see where your life goes from here. I feel like a couple of years from now, but I can't believe I got to talk to her on a podcast.
Oh dear,
she's doing well. So just keep doing what you're doing and enjoying it. And it's like, you ever write that book, come back in here.
Yes, I will send you a copy.
But no, that says thank you very much for coming on. And just before we wrap up, like, what are your next dates for your events and things like that? Just yes. Give it a wee plug. In case anyone wants to go watch you.
Oh, well, yeah. Thing. Thank you. Next gigs, tomorrow. But no, that'll probably be done by the time this is out. But yeah, we've got a few coming up in October. Some fun ones. We've got one, me and my sisters, Kintra, in Edinburgh, on a night called Dice. Really excited for playing for them. Wanted to play for them for a wee bit, so excited. That's at Cab Vol. We've got that one in London, but it's not completely announced yet, so I can have to, can't give all the details about that. But and then Halloween. So for Polka Dot Disco Club, we've got our own night, Monday the 31st, and that's going to be class. I'm very excited because I love dressing up. It's like one of my favourite things ever. So I'm going to get my costume ASAP Rocky because I'm not leaving it to last minute again. Last year I was really disappointed in myself. Usually I put a lot of effort in. Last year I was honestly, I'm not even gonna say what I was. I'm just not impressed at all. But yeah, and then it's just like random gigs after that. yeah, it's good fun. I just really enjoy it.
Well, you can get her on Instagram and you'll see all the dates. It's I'll put your Instagram on the description below the video, and I'm very excited for all of what you're going to be doing, and for people listening to this conversation. Like, I didn't think when you saved me that day, it would take this long to get you on, because I've been a bit up and down at times and all that. But it's good to just be sitting here talking to you and be back doing this. So thank you for giving me your time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. Thank you.